Welcome, everyone. We have a special episode of Evolve Back to Love. My name is Dana Williams, and our special guest today is Andy Byng. And Andy is here with us from Italy, and I'm here in outside of Vancouver in Roberts Creek, British Columbia. So Andy is an amazing teacher and a medium that works as a bridge from the human world to our loved ones in the spirit world. And I'm really excited to open up this conversation with you, Andy. I'm also one of your students, so it's an honor for me to perhaps share you with my community for people that have never heard of you or know about your work or even know that this work is possible. So, Andy, could we jump in and you could maybe start with telling us a little bit about how you got started being a medium in this work?
Of course, yeah. First of all, thank you for inviting me. It's an absolute pleasure to be here. And my mediumship really started when I was 18. Well, I actually left school at 18, and I started a new job in Sheffield, which is about 2 hours from where I lived in Birmingham in the United Kingdom. So on moving to Sheffield, I began to work as an accountant, actually, of all things. And I actually went through quite a difficult period in my life over those 2 years. Within the space of 2 years of starting that job, I lost a home, partner that I was with at the time. And because my job meant I was kind of traveling around Europe and the UK with different companies, it was very difficult to make friends. So after losing my partner, my home, and really going through quite a difficult time where I didn't have anyone to speak to, I used to go walking on evenings, and I actually came upon a small Buddhist centre, and I went there really just to kind of find a community and try and make some friends more than anything. And on the night that I walked past it, there was people walking into that place, and I decided just to go in and see what was going on. And it happened to be a drop-in meditation class. So I started to practice, and every day for 2 years, I really, I was sitting regularly, developing developing the power. Now I know I was developing my mediumship, but at the time I was just meditating. And over that 2 year period, I really had to look at all the things that I'd gone through in life, and the good times, the bad times. I had to relive and reface many difficult experiences that I'd gone through. And by doing so, it really brought the mediumistic potential that was there within me. It really brought it to the surface. And after about 2 years of doing that, I then started to actually have these certain experiences. It wasn't a kind of, this sort of profound revelation that I knew I was a medium. What it was is that one morning, after sitting, like I say, 1 hour a day every day, and 1 hour a day, twice a day, Saturday and Sunday for 2 years, I woke up one morning and just knew I could talk to the dead. And just this knowing within me. And I realised now, looking back, that it was that 2 years of sitting in the power, developing that power within myself, that allowed me to have an insight into the quality and the purpose of my own soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that was to express the mediumship, and that's where it all began. I started then to look and trying to understand these experiences that I was having, and within 18 months later from that first experience, I was demonstrating publicly around the UK.
Wow.
The rest is history, as they say. That's it.
That's amazing. What an inspiration, for people that are having a tough time, a challenging, time in their life, and, to go inside and explore that inner landscape, a lot of people would do the opposite. They would explore the outer landscape to distract and diminish their pain. But in your case, you were very brave to go inside and explore that. So I think that's a really great point for anybody that's watching this that is really suffering and having a bit of a challenging time in life. I wanted to share with you the impetus of these interviews that I'm doing. I do alternative energy medicine with my clients around the world, and I had to write a newsletter a few years ago it was Valentine's Day coming up, and I was sitting here and I was thinking, oh my goodness, what am I going to write about love that is going to be interesting and different? And I was sitting here at this very desk and I was thinking, what am I going to write about Valentine's Day and love? And I instantly heard the word evolve. And I actually said out loud, why do they want me to write down the word evolve in capital letters? So I wrote down the word evolve, and then I instantly saw that it spells the word love backwards and forwards if I put a little heart in between the L and the V.
Yeah,
and so I believe that we're all here to evolve back to love, back to a state of love. And that evolution of hooking in with our divine. I love this picture. I pulled this out of a book many years ago, and it really speaks to me about how what you did in those 18 months, you were basically connecting in with that higher power of yourself and evolving yourself as a human. So I just wanted to share that piece with you because I think it's kind of fun that I am studying mediumship, but I don't have the channels as tuned in yet as you do, Andy. But I just think it's a fun idea that we are these powerful beings, and our soul is patiently waiting for us, if you will. I'd love it if you could talk about the soul and perhaps what is our humanness potential to bridge the soul in a clear way with our lives.
Okay, so I think there's two things that, I mean, the first thing is that we use this word, the soul, but very rarely do we really understand what it is. And what mediumship really tries to do is it tries to provide evidence or an evidential experience, if you like, or an experience that shows us that this worldview, this philosophy of materialism, which has really become the kind of authoritative worldview in the Western world, is flawed. Now, the philosophy of materialism states that consciousness and the way that we navigate the world and the way that we interpret things about the world, whether that's objects or the surroundings that we're in, is dependent on the brain, and that once these chemical reactions in the brain cease to exist, that is, that we physically die, that consciousness is destroyed along with that. So the materialist worldview, which is really been, you see it quite clearly in biological sciences, particularly with Darwinism, and you use the word evolution. Well, definitely human evolution is founded on that very idea that when we die, there's nothing after. That consciousness is a product of the chemical reactions within the brain. So when the brain dies, consciousness ceases to function. And this, and spiritualism in many ways, which is the tradition that I come from, it's the antithesis of materialism. It says, well, actually, when the when the brain physically dies and the heart stops beating, that mind or the soul and the physical brain, matter, are actually independent of each other. And so that when the brain physically dies and the body physically dies, there's this aspect of us which we call mind or the soul, which constitutes our consciousness, our memories, our intelligence, our personality, the very essence of self, that this continues on. And actually, that under certain conditions and with certain people who are able to move their awareness beyond the physical five senses, it's possible to actually communicate with that power of the self, the soul. Mm. So this is the tradition I come from, and this is really what my mediumship is trying to achieve. It's not, people think it's about proving that there's life after death, but there's only one thing that I can sort of promise all of your listeners, and I can promise this with certainty, is that one day they're going to die. It's going to happen to all of us. It's inescapable. It's the inevitable conclusion of our life. And so one day, in some time in the future, we're going to know for ourselves if the spirit world exists or it doesn't, because we're either going to physically die and there's going to be nothing, or we will physically die and we'll end up becoming aware of this other world within this world called the spirit world. Mm-hmm. So my work really isn't about providing evidence of this world, of the spirit world, because I know within myself that these people are going to know one day or another if it's true. And if it is true, then they'll meet up with their loved ones anyway. What my job is that I've discovered this reality of the spirit world for myself. And I'm lucky, privileged and honoured enough that I'm one of those people that is able to move their awareness beyond the physical five senses and become aware of that world and those people that belong to your listeners, and I can communicate with them. And that's a very, that's very much a privilege and an honour to be able to do that. But what I hope to achieve with my work is that if I can move somebody by that experience, through that communication with their loved one, that I'm able to open their mind up to the reality or the possibility that the spirit world is a reality, then it will hopefully be a catalyst which creates change within themselves and sets them forth on a personal spiritual journey, so that they're able to do what I did, which is to look within and to find the true quality and essence of themselves. If we know that our loved ones survived, the next question that it should throw up to us is, well, if my mom survived, if my dad survived, my grandparents have survived, then there must be this immortal part to me too, this part that lives on, the soul, the self, this interior world that we live in and that we experience every day. This part of me, which is my intelligence, my consciousness, my memories, my personality, this is survived. So once we understand that part of us is that, the next question should be then, well, if I have a soul, what is my soul? What is the nature of myself? It should make us look within to find that reality. And that's what my work is all about, because I really believe, if you've called it evolution, I understand it as understanding and awakening, if you like, discovering the true purpose and the most natural expression of myself. But if I can look within and find the qualities that lie there within, and I bring those qualities to the surface, then every single person in the world will have the moment that I had, that moment of waking up and knowing what it is you're supposed to do. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a medium or a healer or anything in the spiritual arts. It can simply be being a business person. I mean, if people don't think that being a businessman is spiritual, then you have to understand that through through producing something and creating something, you're giving people the means to have their own expression, whether that's through the actual expression itself or the physical means that provides them the time and the means to do what they need to do in life. So every expression, from a milkman to a dustbin man to a businessman to a nurse, a doctor. Every expression in the world has a spiritual aspect to it. And I think the job, our first job in life, is to really find out what it is we're supposed to do. And these sorts of practices that I teach and promote around the world is all about self-awakening and understanding that part of the self.
Mm-hmm. And can you talk a little bit about the personality and how the personality and the identity of that person comes through in spirit?
Yeah, so the first of all, and I'll say this first of all, is what we're talking about here is this internal world that we live in. The problem is that we're often so in the world, we're both subjects in the world and we're both objects in the world as well. So when I'm kind of doing my everyday things, I very much forget about myself. I forget that I've got hands and a body and I'm actually an object in the world. I actually am I become a subject. I feel like I'm within my body and I'm looking out and I'm viewing the world that I'm in. And the problem is that when we're living life, we often don't pay attention to this interior world that we live in, that we're experiencing. We don't pay attention to our emotions. We don't pay attention to our the natural qualities that we have as a person. And we don't pay attention to the way in which life affects us. So, we might go through a nasty divorce. I myself, I've already talked about losing most of the big things in my life at the age of 18. You said it right, that most people look outwards and try to distract themselves in a futile attempt at ignoring what's happening within the self. Mm-hmm. And this is what what we're communicating with when we're working with the spirit world, is we're communicating with this thing that's this interior world of other people. So the personality that you've become, which of course partly that personality that you are is partly dependent on the natural qualities that exist from the moment of birth within the self. I very much believe that we're all born with a certain set of qualities, and the way that those qualities naturally manifest within the self, within the soul, will to some degree determine how you act and how you navigate the world in which you live. It determines the base, kind of the foundation of the personality and the self, the way you see the world. But of course, our life experiences that we have, they further individualize us. They actually change and change the very nature of the qualities that we have, or they change the way in which those qualities can be expressed. Our life experiences either suppress certain qualities that are there within, or they create new qualities. So again, to talk about the theme of your talk, life makes us evolve, because there's this symbiotic relationship, isn't there? The way I am naturally as a person depends on the way I perceive and view life, these natural qualities that I have. But also the outside world, these experiences that I have, further affects and changes me. So there's this interdependency on life and the way we are as people. So when we're blending with the spirit world, that's what we're blending with, the aggregate of all of this life that the person's lived. So we're able to first of all experience through the emotion predominantly the essence of that person's personality. What are those core qualities that spirit person had in life? How did they express themselves? What were they like in certain situations with certain people? I very much teach that when it comes to personality, a good medium isn't somebody that makes general statements about the person. I've got your father and he was a nice man, or I've got your dad and he was a difficult person. Because actually human beings are multifaceted. So you might have a dad that's great with his friends and wonderfully generous and giving of time and energy with his social circle, but actually at home with his wife, he can be the exact opposite of that. So that's what we're experiencing. We're experiencing how these different qualities of the communicator, how they manifested in different parts of their life. And it's our job to actually tell the story about that. What is this person's life story in the spirit world? And first of all, we do that through experiencing the essence of them and understanding the qualities that they have. And on top of that, of course, we're also perceiving and becoming aware of the life experiences that this person in the spirit world had when they were here. So we're becoming aware of what their jobs were, what their hobbies were, objects of things that we've still got that belong to them or they used to collect or keep, how they passed to the spirit world, names and things. You know, it's our job to perceive life and the life that the spirit person has led and retell that story. And like I said, that's done through blending and becoming at one with the communicator. So our soul, or the medium soul, and the spirit person's soul becomes at one with each other. It's important to note that that isn't possession. They're not within our body controlling us. That's nonsense. It's where our power, the soul of me and the soul of them, become completely at one. And when that happens, we become the communicator, we actually relive their experiences. We actually relive the very essence and nature of who they are as people. And then we tell that in words. That's the job. And that's what my biggest passion in life is retelling these stories.
And can you talk a little bit about how the reciprocation and benefits affect the spirit world when they do get to make that blending connection with their loved one that's still here in the physical?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we have to understand is that when we pass to the spirit world, we don't change. It's a continuation of life itself. So the moment that I pass to the spirit world, the people that I love I still love, you know. So the thing is like I've said, when we're in this physical body with this conscious mind that's limited and the imagination that's limited, we're able to, I believe we're able to suppress and distract ourselves from the true nature of who we are as people. We can hide it, you see. We hide it in the way that we are. We hide it in forgetting and enjoying the physical life. But I believe when we pass to the spirit world, we have a much more acute awareness of this internal world that we are. We actually become that internal world. We lose this physical body and we become completely aware of the true nature of who we are. And of course, that causes us to have to reflect upon and understand for ourselves the lives that we've led. Now, I've given communications from the spirit world, which haven't been easy communications. There have been people in the spirit world who have done difficult things or not very nice things to their loved ones. And there's been this moment of realization in the spirit world that the way they lived that part of their life was wrong. And sometimes for the spirit world, the communication can be healing for them, not just for the recipient, but actually for them in the spirit world. That by actually being able to say sorry through the medium's story and communicating that, they're able to let go of that grief and forgive themselves for what they did. Now, I don't believe that the spirit world are in the form of suffering, but at the same time, if I'd done something in life that I knew that had hurt somebody in a deep way, and I couldn't distract myself from that anymore. I actually had to acknowledge that. Then I know there would be a deeper desire within me to say sorry. So some of the communications are about that. They're about the spirit world being able to communicate their regret, and by finding forgiveness, or the recipient being able to forgive, or starting that healing aspect within the recipient, they're able to heal themselves. Other communications, of course, are a celebration of the love they shared with someone when they were here. And, you know, if I pass to the spirit world tomorrow, I think I'd miss the people that I've left behind. So that communication through that power of love heals both worlds. You know, it heals the the communicator, they get this opportunity to spend one more day with the people they love here. And of course, it heals the people here. It gives them one more day to spend with the people in the spirit world.
Mm.
And so, yeah, these communications, as a medium, and this might sound strange, but it's not my job to serve this world primarily. It's my job to serve the spirit world.
Mm.
So I have to understand what the need of the communicator is. And through that communication, I have to meet the need of the communicator, which I hope meets the need of the recipient, but it doesn't always. But my first loyalty and allegiance is actually with those in the spirit world, doing what they need me to do, to help them. And my secondary is the recipients and people that come.
Andy, in your teaching with bringing your students to a higher degree where they can communicate with loved ones for themselves and for others, do you find that there's a transformation that takes place with how they live and move and have their being, knowing what they know above and beyond the norm of what we're taught? Do they surrender their egos in a way that they walk softer, or they're more humble when they're interacting with people because they're not on an agenda so much as perhaps someone that doesn't do their work?
Okay, so I think we have to make a distinction between a spirit communicator and a medium, because the two things are very different. We can teach somebody how to be very good communicators with the spirit world and tell great stories about their life and do that part very well. But that doesn't really mean the person is a medium. It just means they're good at spirit communication. The medium, in the truest sense of the word, is somebody that doesn't just communicate with the spirit world, but they actually allow the presence and the power of the spirit, not just the spirit world, but that greater power of God, or the great spirit, or the source, whatever word you want to use. But they're a conduit of that power, where that power can emanate from them and touch everybody present. Mm-hmm. And so to be able to emanate that power and allow it to move people and touch people, there has to be a transformation within the medium, because they actually have to develop a set of qualities that doesn't only underpin and allow the mediumship to flourish. They have to move into the true nature of themselves. So what I'm saying to you is that if people want to truly be in the medium, they have to become in touch and understand who they are. That power of them first has to become real. And then through allowing that power to become real to them and allowing the true qualities and nature of themselves to come forward, the spirit world and that greater power of the spirit can then, through that power of them, manifest itself. So, yes, when we're trying to develop mediums rather than just spirit communicators, I think the foundation of all the development isn't actually in the technical mechanical process of mediumship, but it's actually in the development and awakening of the self. And what that does, you see, when you begin to sit in that power of you and you begin to become aware of it and acknowledge it, it forces us to be honest with ourselves, to form a very honest and open relationship with the self. Mm-hmm. So that doesn't just mean, of course, looking at all the aspects of ourselves that need to be developed more, because that's what the tendency is that we always look at the negative parts, all the things we're not good at, and say, well, we need to do better at that, and we should be better at this. Having an open and honest relationship with the self is also about celebrating those parts of us that are truly wonderful and magical within our life. If we have a talent and we're very good at it, it's okay to celebrate that. But equally, you've also got to celebrate and accept the other aspects that aren't as good. So people ask me, and I think this is the question that you are sort of implying in what you're asking me, is there a place for the ego or this idea of self within mediumship? And absolutely. But it can't be an inflated sense of the self. It has to be an open, honest, and balanced understanding of who we are, warts and all. And this is what this personal spiritual journey really does, because what happens is that you have to relive all of these experiences, and by reliving them, not just once but time after time, you begin to understand them and accept them. And I very much believe that the core qualities of my personality can't be changed. They can be moderated, and they can be used in their best way, but I can't change it. If I'm somebody that's quite naturally confident person, I can't change that. I can't become unconfident, because that's who I am naturally, but I can learn how to moderate that quality and when to use it and how to use it in its best form, rather than allowing it to be overused and become arrogant, you see. It's about finding moderation in the self. Of course, that's what humility is, isn't it? The idea, people have this idea of humility as being a sense of being not good at anything. Well, that's not humility, that's just low self-esteem. If we go around life saying, well, humility means we can't ever say we're good at something. It just means we've got no self-esteem. In the Western world, the epitome, if you like, the icon of humility is, of course, Jesus Christ. And that is supposed to be, Jesus is supposed to epitomize humility. If you look at Jesus, he knew he was the Son of God, and he doubted that before his crucifixion. He said, Lord, why have you forsaken me? So he doubted that quality of himself. But of course, if he didn't know he was the Son of God and that was his purpose, he wouldn't have allowed himself to become crucified. He'd have actually said, he'd have repented in front of Pontius, and he would have been released or have a lesser charge. But he didn't, because he knew that's what he was. He knew the true purpose of himself. And yet not once in those scriptures do you hear Jesus declaring that he is God or the Son of God. It was everybody else that declared that, but he knew he was, you see. And that's what humility truly is to know that you're good at something, to know that to know the true essence and quality of yourself, but actually to allow that quality to manifest itself through your work, rather than having to have an inflated sense of who you are and be boastful about it. And that's what the medium should be, you see. You have to have that confidence and that knowing that you are a medium, because if you don't accept that you're a medium, you can't do the work. Because if you're not convinced by that reality and are confident in that reality, how is anybody else going to be confident? If you haven't got the knowledge that you are a medium, there will always be a part of you inside that will be in turmoil, because you'll always be trying to prove to yourself that you are. So if you don't know that you are, how can you trust fully in what you've received and in the experience that you're having? You can't, you see. So it's no good saying I'm not a medium and that's humility. That's just because you haven't really found the true quality of the self. We have to know we're a medium, and we have to get to a point within that confidence that we know we're a good medium who can do the job properly. And yet we don't have to tell everyone how good we are. We can let the work speak for itself. And we develop these right qualities that can be compassionate, empathetic, good listening skills, willing to sacrifice aspects of our own life to be of service to others. These are all the qualities that, if we develop them properly, that power of the spirit then can move through us and do the real work. Because that's what's doing the real work, is that power of the spirit, not the medium. And this is where, over the years, I've seen many. I mean, I'm a young medium, I'm 33. But I've seen many mediums come and go over the last 15 years because their intent hasn't been correct. They've wanted to be bigger than the work. You see, it's more about self-promotion, more about being a celebrity or being famous. They become bigger than the work. And of course, the mediumship always has to be bigger than the medium, because that's the real star of the show, of course, is the mediumship itself.
And so it makes me think, if you wouldn't have had your adversity when you were 18 and life was just smooth, is there, it's almost like there's a catalyst that can happen in life that will bring adversity. And, your adversity brought you back home to yourself. Would you have discovered this intimacy with yourself, I have to ask, if you didn't have your troubles when you were 18?
Well, I'll be honest, I may have not told the story as well as I could have done, maybe, because although I allowed the qualities of my own mediumship to come to the surface at 18 and develop them consciously, the experiences of the spirit world had been there for a young lad, So mediumship, when I look back, had always been part of my life in a sort of indirect way. So I remember being 8 or 9 years of age, and my mum used to have mediums come round to the house to do sittings for her. She used to organise a little party of people, there'd be like my nan and my mum and a few friends, and the medium would come and have all our sittings. And afterwards, even though I used to be terrified of it all, she couldn't help but tell me what had happened in the sitting. So I remember one story. This is particular proof to me, really, at the age of 8. My grandmother passed when I was 3, and her name was Pansy, which is quite an unusual name. And the medium had said to my mum, "Oh, I've got a lady here by the name of Pat," but that's what everyone called her, but her actual name was Pansy. Well, my nan was called Pansy, but she hated the name and everyone called her Pat, so it was correct. And my grandfather used to grow pansies. He used to love flowers. And on a birthday every year, he used to give us pansies to put out in the garden. Well, the medium said to us, "Well, you're going to get these." She told us this story about what my granddad did. My granddad was still alive then. She said, "Well, this year, when you get your pansies, you must count them. And if the next morning after a birthday morning, one's gone, you'll know she's visited you. And if they're all there, you'll know she hasn't." So my mum, being my mum, the day of her birthday comes, the day before, and she gets me into the kitchen, and we're there counting these pansies that my grandfather had given us. And I think there was about 15, let's say. And we put them in a little vase and we put them on the side. And I remember it was a Saturday when we did that. And the next day on the Sunday was a birthday. And in the morning she gets these flowers out and we count them. And there's 14. So we count them again. 14. I thought, we must have miscounted, those things. So that afternoon, that morning, later on in the morning, we actually we don't normally go to the grave, but this particular year we decided to go to the grave. It's my dad, my mum, and myself, my sister. So we go to the grave, and as we get there, there's this single pansy on the grave, just lying. And we thought, "Oh God, this can't be happening." So we went and looked around every grave, that was in the graveyard, pretty much. I mean, we went everywhere. No other grave had a pansy. We thought it might have blown over. No other grave had a pansy there. We phoned up my auntie. She hadn't been there to put anything down on the grave. So, we have to question. Well, it's a strange experience, but that was the first real, I guess, evidence I had of the spirit world when I was 8, and then losing my grandfather. I remember I used to be I used to be in the Scout movement when I was a kid, and I was 10 now. I was 2 years later. And I remember I was at the Scouts, and my granddad was in hospital. He wasn't well. And I looked at the clock. It was 8:30, and I knew he'd passed. Just this sickening feeling in my stomach. I knew he'd passed. So my dad used to be the scout leader at the time. So, and my sister was there as well because my granddad had just been admitted to hospital that day. We tried to distract ourselves. So we come home from the scouts, and my dad goes in the house, mum and dad's house, to talk to my mum to see what had happened. And my grandfather had passed away, unfortunately. And I remember, we were all very emotional in the car. And we drove to my nan's house. And in the conversation, my dad said, "Well, what time did he pass?" And she said, 8:30 on the dot. And that's the exact moment I knew. And I had this feeling of looking at the clock. So throughout my life, there's been lots of experience. I mean, this is just a couple, but there's been lots and lots of experiences. And I very much believe, at the age of 18, my parents didn't want me to go to Sheffield. I wanted me to go to university. I went. I knew I shouldn't have gone, but I went. And it was a moment in my life where all the right elements came together, really. It was just the right time. It was the right time for me. It was the right time for the spirit world. If I'd decided not to develop it at that time, then I may have gone another 10, 15, who knows how long through life before the next opportunity presented itself, when the time again was right for me in the spirit world. So I very much believe that every soul has a purpose, and every soul has a destiny. That's a bit different from fate. Destiny is the idea that every soul has a purpose to fulfill in life, and I believe we do. But I also believe it's our choice whether we fulfill that destiny or we don't. I don't believe in fate. I don't believe that it's predestined. It's written in the stars, as it were. I believe there is a destiny, a purpose, and we have a choice whether we fulfill that or we don't. And when we decide not to fulfill the potential, our life takes us in a slightly different direction, but it will always bring us another opportunity to fulfill that potential, because that's what our soul's always yearning and moving towards. So to answer the question, and I guess I could have answered it more quickly than what I have done, but I think I would have found it eventually. Maybe, or I'd have definitely had another opportunity to find it.
Yeah.
Whether I took it or not, obviously I can't say, but I just did. I took the opportunity when it presented itself. And I knew in that moment, you see, when I found that expression, life would never be the same, and it hasn't. That expression has allowed me to transform myself, you see. And that's what I really want for all of my students, but also the people that I work, the recipients and the people that I work with in the public, is I want them to be able to get to a point where they're transformed by that power. They go on this personal spiritual journey and transform themselves too.
And sometimes it's like the perfect storm, everything just lines up for the opportunity to either go into victimhood and suffer, or really look at what created the adversity, along the way, that it kind of built up to that.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, I think for quite a few years after Sheffield happened, I did play the victim. I mean, that's part of what it is to heal and to get, you have to go, it's a process, it's a journey you have to go on to. But through reliving those experiences and focusing on that part, I actually realised that part of what was going on with me was that, you might have noticed this, it just happened occasionally. I suffered from quite a difficult speech impediment. I have done for all my life. I stutter. And I've had, through that, I've had some difficulties with kids at school, bullying and so on. And particularly in my teen years, when I was sort of between the age of like 12 and 16, I was, 18 actually, I was quite badly bullied. And part of what I was doing at moving to Sheffield was trying to start a new life and trying to be accepted. And of course, that then led me to find a girlfriend, my first partner, and I latched onto that because I needed to be loved, you see. And rather than doing things for the right way, for what I needed, I went outwardly looking for love and to look for someone to love me and to give me a sense of worth. And that created this big calamity in my life. So, you know, all of these things, I guess, not looking at my life in a particular way, or not really examining my own self, my own soul, caused me to do what you said at the beginning, look outwardly for distractions. I was looking for someone to love. I was looking for self-worth. But what happened was, of course, is that by looking within, I found my own self-worth. I love myself, you see. And that does happen. It can be a perfect storm. You have to go through these difficulties. Because when you've got nothing and you've got nothing to lose, all you've got left is yourself. And then it forces you to look at who you are. I didn't have luckily I just managed to keep my job in the end, but I had no home. I lost the house I bought. I bought the house when I was on my 18th birthday. That I'd lost all my life savings. Actually, because of the difficulty I was going through, and I was 18, and you have credit cards the first time, you actually end up being negative. You know, you end up kind of, it all escalates out of control. So it was quite a difficult period. But I wouldn't change it now. You see, I've accepted that part of my life, and I wouldn't change it for anything, because all those difficult experiences, I've learned to accept and love them, and in doing so, I've also accepted that the kind of the aspects of my personality, of my soul, that maybe not be so desirable for people. You know, my difficult qualities. I know they're there, but I wouldn't want to change those either, because that's who I am. I said I had to moderate them, had to perhaps adapt them and use them in a positive way as much as I can. I'm not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but I wouldn't change my faults, because that makes me unique in my own way, you see. And that's what I'm talking about when I said about having this open, honest relationship with the self. It's all about getting to that point. I'm not perfect. I still have my insecurities, my ups and my downs. You know, no one's perfect, but I'm comfortable with who I am now. That's all you can ask for, I think, in life.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I love the quote. I'm not a churchy person, but there's a quote from St. Francis that I love, and it says, "What we are looking for is looking for us." So in that, if we're looking for love, the catalysts and the ambassadors are going to come in and animate where we don't have that on the inside for ourselves first. So it almost like it's such a powerful statement, really, because the universe is going to show us.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is. I mean, for those people, I mean, there's probably lots of people listening now to this that are going through very difficult times in their life themselves, and you know, what I've come to realise through this work is that when people go through difficult times, particularly when they lose everything like I did, I mean, the reason I lost everything was not because it had to happen. I don't think it did have to happen. The problem that I had was that I was so stubborn and so much pride that when I realised something wasn't right for me, rather than changing my life, I just stayed there and just refused to change. And that's what I think happens. You know, my soul at that time needed something different than what I'd created, and so I was dissatisfied and I was unhappy. But then, rather than changing my life to be in line and more harmonious with what my soul needed, I just stayed there and kept plodding along. And eventually, of course, life has a funny way then of forcing you to change, because you're not living in the right way for yourself. So the situations can turn, and the situations can then force us into a position where we have to change. And that's what, you know, it's a difficult thing to acknowledge in our life, but quite often it's not until we go through the rock bottom that people transform and change and rise from the ashes, as it were.
Mm.
And we can alleviate that difficulty. We can alleviate those problems so long as we understand what we actually need.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the difficult thing, you see, because like I've said, if these life experiences that we have constantly changing us, and of course we realize that this power of the soul, who we are, this internal life, is not static. It changes with every moment, with every thought, every action, every word, every deed. We're constantly changing and evolving that personality of who we are. It becomes very difficult, of course, to know what we need in a particular moment or a particular time in our life, because the goalposts are forever moving.
Mm.
This is what I believe the art of life is, you see. The
Mm-hmm.
art of life is to be in touch with the self, have a greater awareness of who we are and what we need in life, and then being open to change so that we are constantly trying to manifest as close as we possibly can what the soul actually needs in our life.
Mm.
And when people often say, you know, I'm great at manifesting things, and that there is some sort of special power, what I actually think it is that people that really manifest things well in their life is because they're not manifesting things that they want. They're actually trying to manifest something that their soul naturally needs. That's the first thing, you see. If I say I want to manifest £1 million sterling, but I don't need that, you know, my soul doesn't need that, then it's not going to be manifested because it's not what I actually need. You know, I'll manifest what it is my soul needs. And so the first thing is this sort of understanding, what do we need and what do we want? Because the two things can be different. And once we start with ourselves and we understand what we need, we then have to be willing to change our lives to enable those opportunities to come where it can be manifested. And you see, that's where people that are good manifestors, I feel like, and it's something that's quite, I know, especially in the States and in Canada, this idea of manifesting things is a popular thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so popular, I don't think, in the UK, in that terminology. But what I've noticed are the people that are very in tune with themselves and know what they need and are very good and willing to change their lives and be flexible so those things can find space in their life. And that's because they're actually living life properly. That's what life should be about. But instead we hold on to these things, don't we? You know, we've got this house and it's important to us, so we hold on to it for dear life. Where actually, if we lost the house, we'd find that the next day we would continue living just as happily without it. And that's what I learned at 18 when I lost everything. It wasn't the things that I'd lost that were upsetting. It was the feeling of loneliness and not having people in my life. And that's what was difficult. So these difficult things are there to test us, but they're also there to help change and move us in the right direction.
And on that note, maybe this would be a perfect time to talk about the sitting. I've taken your Sitting in the Power course that you offered a few months back, and I know you've got another one coming up. Could you talk a little bit about that and the rest of the offerings that you're bringing forward? I know you've got a tour, and it would be really nice for people to know what you're up to.
Yeah, so I mean, I am running a Sitting in the Power online course. With the meditation, it's a very simple meditation, and it's really for those of people that are interested in developing their mediumship. It's actually a fantastic practice to strengthen the foundations of their mediumistic unfoldment. But for those that aren't mediums, but actually just want to get more in touch with themselves and I guess live a life, or try to live a life like we've been talking about this evening, you know, it's good for those people as well, because the meditation practice, it allows you to build a relationship with yourself and a relationship with the spirit world as well. And by building a relationship with both things can bring all of the qualities and the sense and really the qualities and the talents that we have. It brings it all to the surface, and it helps us to go on this personal spiritual journey. During the 4-week course, I break down the meditation into parts and give a short talk and a practice that can help you to master each aspect of the sitting in the power meditation. So there's an overall meditation, sitting in the power meditation. I break that down into component parts and then give other practices that can help you to focus and master each aspect of the meditation that's needed. So it's something that it went down very well. It was very well received, even though I say so myself. We did it last year, and I hope so. It will continue in that way this year. I'm also running an online progressive group. It's a regular group for students. We take 16 students. They have regular online tutorials. We also live stream 2 in-person seminars, which they can then be part of while they're happening. So it'll be happening in a particular place. They'll be seeing it, it'll be streamed online live, and then they can take part in the exercises and follow the teachings as they're happening. So all that stuff, rather than me spend 10-15 minutes talking about everything, you can find everything on my website. So should I give my website address?
Yes, yes. It's
www.andybyng.com, and you can find everything on there that's happening next year.
And you've got can you talk about your spirit talks, because those are so beautiful?
So Spirit Talk is an idea that actually myself and Alison Gannon from the Mentors of Mediumship in America, we had this idea that, we try to give, it's always been a really big part of my belief is I try to give back as much as I can. And I realise that the education should be there for everybody, regardless of financial means. So I established a scholarship fund, which gives around about, I think it was about £15,000 sterling of scholarships this year. So I try to, it's not, I haven't got to find the money, I just give free places to courses. So those scholarships, for people that really want training but can't afford them, again, you can find the scholarship places on my website. And the other part we do, of course, is the free talks. So I do an hour's talk once, I think it's probably a couple of times a month. And all you have to do, it's completely free to be part of it. You just have to register, and you can find that on the website as well under Spirit Talks.
That's fantastic.
Register. We'll send you the link out on Zoom. You just attend at the allotted time, and it's all there.
It's brilliant. And you also have a 4-day live stream training coming up. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so it's going to be in, I think, you've stumped me now. I can't remember the exact dates. I think it's the 21st, the 24th of September, if my mind serves me correctly.
Yeah, I think it's 24th.
So that's going to take place. You can, you really got, again, if you go onto my website, go onto the Seattle Intensive link and register. You can register for that online live streamed broadcast there, and it's all there. There's lots of opportunities for people. I think lots of times, again, people can't travel, they can't get to certain places. Online training is great for that. I think it does need to be, if I'm honest, I think it does need to be supplemented as well with in-person training, but actually having the balance of the two things is very good. Mm-hmm. So I try to provide both opportunities for people.
Bravo. Andy, do you have any closing words that you would like to bring forward?
I think I've said everything really. For me, lots of people think that spirituality is about developing a spiritual gift, whether that's healing, whether that's mediumship, whether it's speaking, trance, whatever it is. I just like to get across to people, this is just one aspect of spiritual expression. What I think we should all be focusing on and trying to look for is simply what is the expression of me. And we've got to be open that expression may change throughout our life. Although I'm a medium today, I'm very open that tomorrow I might have to be something else, that I might have to spend more time developing writing or other ideas or other projects. Look, we have to be very fluid in life, I think. And I think this thing called life is a journey. And quite often we have these real set ideas about how life is going to be and how it should be for us. And I just encourage everybody really to look within, to actually find out what their soul needs in that moment. Of course, I'm talking about a period of time, that particular moment in their life, and to work towards manifesting that true expression of who they are. Because if we do that, I think it ultimately leads to a much more meaningful and comfortable life. And that's all I think everyone wants, is to live more in harmony with who they are. And it's there, it's open to everybody. Mediumship is great, you know, because it's through that expression of the mediumship that we can lead people onto this personal development, and we can lead people onto this personal spiritual development. So I know I've spent an awful lot of time this evening talking about self-development and self-awareness, but I've done so because it's so important. If you're developing a mediumship, it's the fundamental thing. It's the biggest thing that people don't do when they want to become a medium, but it's the most important aspect of their development. So it's something that's ignored, but it's so needed. For those that aren't developing their mediumship, of course, but have been perhaps persuaded by that communication with the spirit world, then I would implore them. I kind of appeal to them now and say, well, if you've been moved by that power, question what that power is like within you, and start now to look within and understand and build that relationship with yourself, so that you can become the best version of yourself in this life, rather than having to go to the spirit world and regretting the life we've lived. Let's live the actual best life that we can today. It's all about life.
Exactly. I think of it like, you know, I was given the acronym for death as the date energy allows the homecoming. So if this is where we're all going eventually, like you say, you know, there's one thing is for sure, we're all going to die. Yeah. You know, and like you just said, you know, what a shame to arrive home and then find out that you got a lot of work to do because you weren't paying attention here, right?
Yeah, it's my biggest fear. And my biggest fear is to go to the spirit world and to realize that I completely missed the point. And you know, if I miss the point now, then I wouldn't be upset, because I know in my heart of hearts I've tried my hardest to actually try to find and understand myself. If I hadn't done that through my life and just lived life like, you know, dead to that part of myself, unaware of that part of myself, then the story might be different. And that's what I'm trying to do this evening, is appeal to everybody, not to be preachy, but just take a few moments every day to become aware or mindful of actually the essence of who you are. And if you do that just for a few moments every day, it can transform your life.
Thank you. What a beautiful way to end our conversation, Andy. Thank you so very much.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure, and thanks for inviting me.
It's been my pleasure. Okay, Andy. Wish you all the best, and I'm sure that there'll be people reaching out to find out more about you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And I look forward to seeing everyone. And again, thank you very much. And I'll speak to you soon.